Donald Trump is absolutely furious. Attorney General Pam Bondi is faking an illness. Now we're learning that that leather-bound book, which includes the alleged letter that you sent, is in the possession of the Epstein estate, where they forced a vote in the House Oversight Subcommittee, where they knew they had the votes of MAGA Republicans there, to avoid speaking at a human trafficking conference that was taking place yesterday.
Did Trump just lose the ultimate game of cover-up? The revelation of the Epstein files is creating a storm, and his denials are starting to sound like someone caught with crumbs on their shirt. What's in these mysterious documents that has Grumpy Trumpy so terrified? Get ready to uncover the puzzle he's desperately trying to hide. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why is Trump so desperate to convince everyone the Epstein files are a hoax? I mean, let's be real. When someone panics this hard over documents they supposedly have nothing to do with, it raises a big, shiny red flag. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump was told back in May that his name popped up in these files, and ever since then, his response has been a mix of denial, deflection, and downright paranoia. It's like watching someone dig a hole while claiming they're just gardening. But let's back up for a second. What exactly are the Epstein files? Think secret guest lists, emails, logs of private jet rides, and any communications tied to Jeffrey Epstein and his cronies. They're a treasure trove of information that could shed light on the web of relationships Epstein had with some of the world's most powerful people. And yes, Trump's name was apparently in there. Of course, he's wasted no time calling it all fake. A scam, the usual witch hunt spiel he trots out whenever something threatens to expose him. But let's be honest, if every accusation he's called a hoax was actually fake, this guy would be living in some alternate universe where no rules apply and everyone just takes his word for things. Oh wait, that's basically been his strategy his entire life. Trump's reaction to this news was classic Trump, a meltdown wrapped in bravado. Picture a kid caught red-handed with their hand in the cookie jar, but insisting they were just making sure the cookies were still fresh.
As previously reported, Jeffrey Epstein's long-term lawyer, Roy Black, with the House of Representatives in connection with their subpoena. You've got the Wall Street Journal issuing another explosive exclusive. South Park is on Paramount, and Paramount was the ones that just got rid of. White House is frustrated by the all-consuming Epstein coverage. You brought it upon yourself. This was your big issue.
Hoax this. Deep state that. It's like a greatest hits album of his go-to excuses. It doesn't help that his track record with the truth is shakier than a Jenga tower during an earthquake. The louder he shouts hoax, the more people start side-eyeing him, wondering exactly what he's so scared of. And speaking of scared, let's go back to these files. What makes them particularly terrifying for someone like Trump is their potential to connect dots. Remember, Epstein wasn't just some run-of-the-mill shady businessman. He was the hub of an elite network that allegedly used his private island, planes, and mansions for very questionable purposes. The files could reveal who visited, when, why, and under what circumstances. Whispers have already started circulating about big names showing up in these documents. Wealthy investors, political figures, Hollywood celebrities. If Trump's name is nestled in there somewhere, it's not hard to see why he's hitting the denial button so hard it might leave a dent. Let's not forget Trump's infamous "I barely knew the guy" routine he's pulled on Epstein before. There are photos of them together, videos of them laughing and chatting like a couple of old buddies at parties. Sure, Trump has tried to frame it like he was just casually acquainted with Epstein, a totally innocent bystander caught up in the wrong crowd. But when your past is as littered with suspicious friendships as his, it's a tough story to sell.
Saying they will see how the meeting goes with the Department of Justice to determine how she will proceed in her depositions, that back in May, Donald Trump was told that he was all over the Epstein files, and that's when Donald Trump came up with the plan to say, oh, it's all a hoax. And then you brought in to lead your FBI and DOJ people who spread all this stuff about Epstein and grifted off of it, Colbert, and they settled with Donald Trump over the ridiculous 60 Minutes lawsuit. And the South Park guys were not playing around. They did this whole thing of like,
I mean, imagine trying to convince someone you barely knew your neighbor, but then they pull out footage of you borrowing sugar, mowing each other's lawns, and roasting marshmallows together. It doesn't really hold up, does it? And then there's this. Even if Trump's name is just a blip in those files, and to be fair, we don't know the full details yet, what else might come tumbling out? That's the real concern here. Forget his name for a moment. What if the files include details about financial transactions, powerful connections, or a Rolodex of people Epstein was quietly blackmailing? Every revelation has the potential to send shockwaves through the political world. And if Trump's tangled up in it even a little, it could be the beginning of his worst nightmare: accountability. Adding to the tension is Trump's bizarre tendency to overreact in ways that make everything worse. By loudly calling the files fake, he's inadvertently making them a bigger story. It's like when someone insists they don't care about something, but then they write 10-page Facebook rants about how much they don't care. Trump could have shrugged it off, but nope. He's chosen to throw a tantrum instead, and let's be real, the tantrums only make people more curious. It's kind of like a bad horror movie, where the monster lurking in the shadows becomes scarier because you can't see it yet. Whatever's in those files, Trump knows it's got teeth, and the suspense might be killing him more than anyone else. To top it off, imagine how this impacts the people around him. His legal team is probably sweating through their suits right now, scrambling to figure out what's coming next. The rest of the Republican Party, which has already had to perform ridiculous mental gymnastics to defend his behavior in the past, might find themselves facing a scandal they can't spin this time. One crack in the dam, and the whole thing could come crashing down. But here's the kicker: Trump's biggest fear might not even be the files themselves. It's what they symbolize. They're a reminder that no matter how untouchable he tries to appear, there are still traces of his past that could come back to haunt him. The Epstein saga has loomed over countless public figures for years, and now that it's creeping closer to Trump, he's acting like someone watching the walls close in. If this isn't his worst nightmare, it's definitely in the running. And speaking of nightmares, Trump's reaction to this isn't exactly helping his case. His public statements and behavior are only making him look more desperate, and we'll get into that circus act in just a moment. What does a man do when the walls are closing in? If you're Trump, you double down, you deflect, and you try to distract, no matter how ridiculous it makes you look. Why is Trump behaving like the lead in a bad cartoon about a villain trying and failing to cover up his tracks? Let's talk about how his psycho behavior is turning this whole Epstein-related mess into a front row seat for watching someone self-destruct in real time. He's yelling fake news so loud he might pop a vocal cord, all while doing the very things that make people even more suspicious. Start with the speeches. Now, Trump has always been a guy who treats a podium like his personal soapbox, but lately his rants have been next level. He's calling the Epstein files a hoax, blaming Democrats and their witch hunt vibes, and even dragging Obama and Biden into it. According to Trump, these guys are working tirelessly just to ruin his life. Sure, Barack Obama probably wakes up every day thinking, how can I spend my retired life secretly crafting Trump scandals? Right, but what's wild about these rants is how unhinged they've become. One minute he's slamming the files as fake, the next he's attacking anyone who even suggests his name might be in there. It's like saying you don't even like cake, but slapping the fork out of someone's hand when they try a slice. And when he's not screaming these accusations into a microphone, he's typing them in all caps on social media. His posts look more frantic with every passing day, like someone texting, "It's not what it looks like," to every suspicious friend they've got. He's crafted an entire narrative where he's the victim of an epic conspiracy. Except, you know, the last time he played his conspiracy theory greatest hits card was during the Russia investigation, and we all know how well that worked out for him. Hint, it didn't. And his distractions, oh, they're a sight to behold.
Has suddenly died. You have Donald Trump's DOJ saying they will be meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell today, according to the victim's lawyer who sued the Epstein estate. And now that could be subpoenaed as well. Oh, and speaking of where it has that AI Donald Trump, where it literally says, "I'm Donald Trump, but I have a tiny penis." Did you see that? They skewered him, and it should be noted that the Democrats pulled an incredible maneuver. I'm going to cover it more here on the Midas Touch Network.
In the middle of all this Epstein chaos, Trump used a speech at an AI conference to start ranting about transgender athletes. No, I'm not kidding. You could almost hear his advisors facepalming somewhere off stage. Why would someone who claims innocence about Epstein suddenly pivot to a completely unrelated topic during a conference that has nothing to do with sports? Classic Trump playbook. If the heat gets too real, throw spaghetti at the wall and hope nobody notices the fire in the corner. It gets better or worse, depending on your tolerance for for absurdity because his contradictions are as blatant as can be. On one hand, Trump says he barely knew Epstein, just a totally casual acquaintance, nothing to see here. But do people normally laugh and chat with their barely known connections at parties? I mean, most of us smile politely at strangers we bump into, not share laughs like old pals. And on the other hand, he's going scorched earth on anyone who dares connect his name to Epstein's. The contradictions are glaring. If he had nothing to do with the guy, what's with the histrionics? He's throwing gasoline on a fire, all while insisting there isn't any smoke. It's honestly like watching a bad magician whose tricks keep failing. You know the type. The one who tries to pull a rabbit out of a hat but yanks out a pair of socks instead. At this point, his efforts to distract and deflect are so obvious, you can almost see the strings and wires. Denying, deflecting, repeating the same excuses, it's his thing. But in this case, it's backfiring. People aren't walking away unconvinced. They're leaning in closer because the desperation is impossible to ignore. Here's the thing though, Trump has always been predictable when it comes to damage control. If there's one trick he pulls more than any other, it's attempting to flip the blame. During the Russia investigation, he constantly claimed it was a Democratic ploy to tear him down, and now he's using the same tired script for the Epstein files. This time though, it feels different. Back then, he had his loyal megaphone of supporters who would echo his every word without question. But now, the scandal has legs, and they're running faster than the spin cycle his team is trying to throw it into. Even people who might have backed him are raising eyebrows because, let's face it, the louder he yells nothing to hide, the more people are thinking, okay, but like, are you sure?
Out subpoenas. Don't you love this mountain that is piling on Donald Trump that we're actually seeing accountability? His name appears all over it. Then we saw what Donald Trump said in July when he was asked, hey, were you ever told that you were in the Epstein files? And Donald Trump says, no, to issue a subpoena, not just the one previously issued for Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition, but the Democrats forced the MAGA Republicans to take a vote on issuing a subpoena to get the full Epstein files.
Deflection only works if people stop paying attention. The problem is, Trump's antics make headlines. By amplifying the conspiracy angle, blaming others, and throwing out bizarre distractions like bad stand-up comedy material, he's ensuring this story stays alive. What's more, the Epstein case already comes with so much intrigue built in. This isn't some minor accusation. It's a scandal that involves money, power, and possible crimes happening on private islands and private jets. By publicly panicking, Trump has guaranteed all eyes remain on him. Any good PR person could tell you that silence might have been golden here. But when has Trump ever met a microphone he didn't try to commandeer? If anything, this whole meltdown shows just how damaging these files could be. Not because we know for sure what's in them, but because Trump is acting as though the worst case scenario is already true. You don't need to crack open the documents yet to see just how much fear they've sparked in him. It's hard to imagine him going to such lengths, ranting on every stage, typing manically into his own echo chamber, dragging old grudges back into the spotlight if these files didn't contain something seriously incriminating. And that's exactly why people are more curious than ever. Because Trump's outrage, his contradictions, the cringy excuses, they're like breadcrumbs leading straight to a big, ugly truth. But what happens when the political fallout becomes impossible to ignore? Well, we're about to connect those dots. And trust me, the consequences might just be the final nail Trump's been dodging. Stay with me, because what's next could change everything. What happens when all those scattered puzzle pieces finally click into place? For Trump, it might look less like a picture-perfect moment and more like a courtroom sketch. The Epstein files aren't just scraps of paper to him, they're a ticking time bomb. And each new legal step, like subpoenas, DOJ meetings, and public pressure to release the files, is another second shaved off the clock. Let's begin with what's actually happening. The House Oversight Subcommittee, led by Democrats but with some bipartisan support, voted to subpoena the Epstein files from the Department of Justice. They didn't just request them, they outright demanded them, legally obliging the DOJ to hand over any documents tied to Epstein's network, including ones that reportedly name Trump. Subpoenas don't exist for fun. They mean someone's serious about getting answers, and in this case, those answers might be sealed inside 300 gigabytes of data. That's what investigators have on Epstein and Maxwell's activities: phone intercepts, computer files, and presumably some flight logs that could make jet-setting elites more than a little uncomfortable. And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell, who's already sitting in prison as Epstein's right-hand woman. What's she got to say about all this chaos? Well, apparently the DOJ has been having some conversations with her. These meetings could mean anything from throwing her a deal, to spill all those dirty secrets, to denying her an exoneration. This leaves the possibility wide open for Maxwell to cut herself a break. After all, if Maxwell has names and receipts, who's to say she isn't folding some of those cards for her freedom? And let's not forget, her freedom probably isn't Trump's preferred outcome. But here's where things really get uncomfortable for Mr. Nothing to see here. Democrats are breathing down the DOJ's neck to make those files public. If, and this is a big if right now, they're declassified and released to the public, it's not just Trump's reputation on the line, it's his legal status. There's a difference between awkward photos at a party and being tied to shady dealings that include people who have spent significant time in prison for sex trafficking. The possibility that the files include flight logs, depositions, and even sales records of favors or financial dealings turns this from a PR turning a nightmare into a serious legal risk. Imagine it like this: every subpoena, every courtroom debate, and every redacted document waiting for release is another tick on the bomb's countdown. Trump and his advisors surely realize that it's not about if the public finds out, but when.
After Congress subpoenaed Ghislaine Maxwell to have her deposition taken, you have Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer, Donald Trump, sleeping with the devil, and Donald Trump covering up the Epstein files, which is mimicking real life. I never heard about that. And by the way, Donald Trump was just absolutely freaking roasted by South Park. Did you see the episode last night? And that's why the Department of Justice was rushing to meet with Ghislaine before she has to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Enigmas never age, as alleged in the Wall Street Journal. Our secrets shall always remain. Remember that well.
That's why all this scrambling, shouting hoax on social media, and leaning on outdated deflection tactics might feel familiar. This situation, though, isn't like tax records or hush money payments. This goes deeper. It's not just messy, it's criminal level messy. And it's not like Trump's team can just sit this one out and hope it all fades away. Let's throw in one more wild card to stir the pot. A leather-bound book reportedly stashed somewhere with the Epstein estate. According to Bradley Edwards, who represents several of Epstein's victims, this book includes letters and other documents connected to Epstein's dealings. Edwards straight up said this book could be subpoenaed. Who holds those pages might determine the kind of Pandora's box we're dealing with. Think about it. On one side, there are names, dates, and even written proof of correspondence hanging in the balance. On the other side, Trump's future as a free man and a political force could be crumbling before his eyes. Here's the thing, Trump's most loyal supporters might be brushing all this off as just another hit job, but the stakes are too high to ignore. This isn't political mudslinging. This is the kind of investigation where the evidence doesn't take sides. And that, more than anything, is what Trump can't distract his way out of. When those files are unveiled, there's no filter or spin that can sanitize what comes out. To make matters worse, the DOJ's interest in Maxwell could signal something much bigger than Trump himself. Broader exposure of Epstein's networks and everyone embedded in them. Sure, Maxwell might have spent her trial clamming up, but we know her silence has a price. If the DOJ bargains with her, the revelations could expose every person who crossed paths with Epstein in ways they'd rather we never knew. Whether Trump is connected personally, financially, or both, silence on this scandal is almost impossible now. At the heart of it all, these files are shaping up to be more than receipts. They're shaping up to be legal landmines, and we all know Trump's love of lawsuits doesn't mean he's equipped for this kind of fallout. Public outcry is one thing. He's been weathering that storm since the day he announced his presidential candidacy. But subpoenas don't care about rallies, Twitter spats, or whether his base thinks it's all one big conspiracy cooked up by the left. Subpoenas care about facts. And the facts here might be so damaging that Trump's legal team won't know which courtroom to panic about first. So if these files are Pandora's infamous box, that lid might not stay closed for much longer. When it does crack open, it won't just be bad headlines for Trump. It could be career-ending, lawsuit-inducing, political catastrophe level bad. Because it's not about whether or not Trump can talk his way out of it. It's about whether the truth sealed in 300 gigabytes can ever let him escape it. But the real kicker? Maybe the reckoning here isn't just about legal consequences or even Trump himself. This goes further, unraveling everything he's spun into a public image. And the endgame for revealing these secrets? That part's next. And trust me, it's bigger than the man himself. Trump's efforts to bury the Epstein scandal have blown up in his face, adding fuel to the fire he's so desperate to put out. His panicked cries of hoax and frantic attempts to spin the story have only made the files, and what's potentially inside them, more of a public obsession. With subpoenas looming and whispers of damning evidence tying him closer to Epstein, the truth has never felt closer to surfacing. So here's the question: if those files get released, will Trump's game finally be up? The pieces are moving into place, and Trump's biggest fear could soon become reality.